Hey, this is David Blakesley talking to you on the fifth and final installment of a mini-series I've been doing on world cinema titles recently released on disc by Kino Lorber, either Blu-ray or DVD. Really quickly, I'm going to recap the films that I've already discussed. The Little Girl Who Sold the Sun and Le Franc by Djibril Diop Mambety. These are films from Senegal and Africa. I did Inside the Yellow Cocoon Shell, a Vietnamese film that won the Best Debut Feature Award at the Cannes Film Festival in 2023. Kind of an exploration of faith, especially through the Vietnamese Catholic perspective. Inshallah, a Boy, a film from Jordan, another recent release. In fact, it was screened at Cannes last year in 2023 as well, about a woman who has to fake a pregnancy in order to hold on to her property for the sake of her and her daughter and not kind of succumb to the pressures and the exploitation of the patriarchy in that very strict Muslim culture. The Wind of Ayahuasca. This is a Peruvian film just released last month, but it was actually made in 1982 about indigenous life in Peru. It's kind of quasi-documentary. It does have an actual ayahuasca ceremony filmed in it, but it's also about the intersection between kind of the more, contemporary at that time, at least, westernized culture and the indigenous people of Peru. A very fascinating film by a woman filmmaker as well. Now, the one I'm going to talk about today, also directed by a woman, is Four Daughters. This is a Tunisian film. The director's name is Kauthar Ben Hania. She gives an interview about a half an hour long as a supplemental feature on this disc. And what a fascinating piece of work this is.
مش نحاول نحكي حكيت بنت ألفا. ألفا عندها 4 بنات.
بيك الله مصيبة، لا أني من نكره الطفلة وكل ما حبيتش نجيب حتى الطفلة.
الزوز الصغار آية وتيسير نزلوا عايشين معاها، والزوز الكبار تلاقيهم الذيب. باش تتعرفوا على زوز ممثلات اللي باش يمثلوا أدوار أخواتكم الكبار. يا
حتى هما كانوا كيفكم هكاك. كي لبست غفران النقاب مخلينا ما عملنا فيها. تسلطنا عليها العنصرية بتاعنا. مرتاح مع روحك، مرتاح في راسك. إيه انتي وقتها بتحشميش على روحك؟ نهار آخر في الدرك الأسفل. وأكثر إنسان مش باش نسامحك طول حياتي. إنه كل حاجة باش نعيشوها هي صارت. نداوم برشا في الجروح متاعنا. ونكرهك نكرهك نكرهك.
ليش بالقسم؟
اللي فهمته من الفيلم اللي مش يكون دوري كما دور روس في فيلم تيتانيك. حبيت بدلي جديد. هي مش تحكي في حكاية فاتت. فما ممثلين اخرين اللي هم مش يمثلوا الواقع اللي متاع القصه هذيك. روحي والدم كيف ما يرجع يفرطط طول النار اللي تحرقه، كيف ما يرجع الفلاح للارض اللي يعرقه، كيف ما يرجع الملاح للبحر اللي غرقه، نرجع لك حي وبهية.
Okay, so I'm going to try to sort of wing it here. I don't have anything written down, so here's what the story's about. The four daughters referred to in the title are four women, four girls who were born to Olfa, a Tunisian woman. She got married under, I guess, somewhat coerced circumstances, and in the process of raising her children, she and her husband split up. But then what kind of made her a little bit more famous and was sort of the driving motive of this film was that two of her daughters got involved in kind of the Daesh terrorist group, the Islamic State, I guess is how, or ISIS as we commonly refer to it here in the West. These two women basically left the family and got absorbed by this, you know, really dark world of kind of radical Islamic terrorism, if you want to call it that. And they, you know, they paid a consequence for it. I don't want to say exactly what happened to them, but the story is, why would these two young women kind of yield themselves to this very dangerous and destructive movement? Of course, these things don't happen in a vacuum, but certainly the kind of the primeval fear that every parent might have of their children being sort of grabbed by some kind of fanatical ideology and having their life thrown off course because of some virulent ideas, concepts that they got into their head. That's just kind of a universal concern for anybody who's raised children. I mean, not all of us live in dreadful fear of that, but it's certainly a thing that could happen, and it did happen to this family. So this woman has 4 daughters, and then these 2 here that are on the cover are the daughters who did not get involved in that movement and did not go down that road. But they've grown up a bit since then, and so this filmmaker, Kauthar Ben-Hania, had heard about the story, and she actually took several years of putting the project together. What makes it so fascinating is not only just the subject matter, and again, the chance just to kind of look inside a culture that to me is pretty foreign, pretty distant, but also quite fascinating, is how the story is told, because in the casting and in the attempt to recreate some of the pivotal scenes that led to this outcome, she cast 2 young women to portray the missing daughters, while the actual mother herself and the 2 youngest daughters appear very frequently in the film. And then there's another woman who's cast to sort of present the role of the mother, Olfa. She's a Tunisian movie star named Hend Sabri, and she was pretty well known, and apparently she had made a movie about a mother who went to Syria to look for her son after he'd gotten involved with one of these radical Islamic groups. And so Hend Sabri had a sort of a celebrity status as a woman who was caught in that very situation of losing your child to this dangerous movement. And so the way it's cast is that Hend Sabri will come in to portray Olfa in scenes that are maybe too emotionally demanding or difficult or just too sensitive for the mother to play herself. In other words, recreating some of these traumatic moments of her life and the life of her family. So you've got this whole fourth wall breaking thing, because you've got the actors who are the actual people themselves portraying themselves at earlier stages in life, but then there's also the sort of discussions behind the scenes or the making of. So it's got an incredibly multi-layered meta aspect to it, where you know, there's just all of this kind of description of what's about to happen, or there's kind of commentary to kind of give context to certain events that are portrayed on the film. The movie is kind of about the making of itself, or it's about the making of a movie that never actually did get made and presented in that format, because there's so much sort of behind the scenes and off to the side conversation going on that it becomes just really elusive and slippery, and in some ways very reminiscent of things like Kiarostami did, or Jafar Panahi, where they're really keeping you conscious of the fact that this is a film being presented to you as a depiction of events, and the film becomes a part of the storytelling, the medium that the images and sound are broadcast on. So it's, you know, it's a film I've only watched through one time. I've rewatched a few scenes, but this is one that I think is going to grow on me and really become perhaps a favorite. I'm just super impressed because of the subject matter, the you know, the kind of creative cinematic imagination that went into constructing the film the way it did, and these characters, these 2 young women in particular, as well as the mother, just kind of giving an insight as to what it's like to be a woman in these very strict traditional societies where women's voice just doesn't really count for much whenever it kind of becomes an inconvenience to the established order of things. And these young women, of course, it helps that the daughters are all very photogenic. I mean, they're beautiful young women, but they have a certain presence and power of how they present themselves. It seems very genuine, and they're just observing what's been going on around them in their lives. Of course, they were much younger than you see in this picture here, when their two older sisters went through this, but the loss of those sisters to this movement still summons a lot of very strong emotions. And so if you are empathetic to the point of maybe shedding a tear of accompaniment when sad things happen, you know, have some hankies available, because you might need them. There's some pretty deep emotional currents running through this film, and some moments that really are very heart-touching and just very effective. So it's a unique film, one that I'll definitely enjoy, looking forward to watching it again. But very strongly recommend, whether you buy it or just stream it somewhere, check out Four Daughters. It's a pretty impressive piece of work, and I think you'll enjoy it.